Long ago, when the world still smelled of pine sap and snowmelt, and kingdoms were cradled between mountains like pearls in velvet boxes, a royal cradle rocked with twin daughters. The first was born beneath the clang of bells, her cry bright and clear, like sunlight breaking through stained glass. By the time she could walk, she had already mastered the art of conversation. Courtiers joked that if the kingdom ever lost its heralds, this little girl could shout proclamations from every balcony herself. Her words were a river, tumbling, splashing, finding a way around any obstacle. Her sister arrived a few breaths later in the same birthing chamber, but under a hush so deep the midwives thought for a moment. She might be made of mist. She looked up with solemn eyes, lips closed as if the secret of the world had been placed behind them. The court called her Hannah, and though she never uttered a sound, she watched everything with the patience of stone statues, absorbing, recording. Years unfurled like silk banners. Teresa, the talkative princess, grew into a brilliant, sparkling presence. She filled corridors with her laughter and debates, bouncing from one visitor to another with effortless grace. She was already a queen without a crown, confident, admired, sure of her place. Hannah, meanwhile, drifted quietly at her sister's side, listening. Servants lowered their voices when she entered a room. Not out of fear, but because she made silence seem natural, even necessary. The queen worried. Ministers whispered that a princess who could not speak could never lead. Hannah's muteness was not just an absence of voice. It was an enigma, a question no one knew how to answer. Yet Hannah was not empty. She was full of sounds no one else heard. It began as a shiver under her skin whenever she stepped outside the palace gates. While Teresa was off choosing between lilac or lavender gowns, Hannah slipped into the gardens barefoot, trailing her fingers across rosemary and yarrow. When wind poured through the cedars, she could taste its mood. A hint of copper for anger, honey for joy. Birdsong braided itself into patterns she understood without thinking, like reading an old familiar script. Sometimes she pressed her ear to the oldest oak and felt it hum. "We are enough for the growth of this trunk," it murmured in a voice that belonged neither to man nor beast. She didn't know why she understood, only that she did. And in those moments she felt less like a voiceless girl and more like an interpreter for a kingdom that had forgotten how to listen. The court chalked up her wanderings to boredom. "Poor child," they whispered. "She invents invisible friends to keep herself company." Even Teresa, who loved her dearly, sometimes dismissed her visions as daydreams. But Hannah kept listening. One autumn dusk, when the shadows of the forest grew longer than the castle walls, she caught a new sound, not a hum or a breeze, but a ragged sigh woven through the roots of the hills. It spoke in fragments. They burn, they twist, they whisper lies. The words coiled like smoke inside her chest. The forest she had always known as gentle now felt restless, almost fevered. Night after night, the murmurs returned. Curiosity wrestled with fear until, at last, Hannah wrapped herself in a simple cloak and stepped beyond the familiar paths. Moss glowed faintly under her feet. Branches curved overhead like ribs of an ancient beast. The further she went, the stronger the voice became, until she could no longer tell whether it was around her or inside her. At the heart of the dark wood stood a tree unlike any she had seen. Its trunk was wider than a banquet hall. Its bark shimmered faintly as though soaked in moonlight. Hannah stopped, breath caught between awe and recognition. Old library scrolls had told of a mythical sentinel, the rootkeeper, guardian of the kingdom's lifeblood, witness to every triumph and betrayal. It was supposed to be a legend, something scribes used to frighten liars and warm children's imaginations. Yet here it stood. She laid a trembling palm on its bark. A pulse leaped beneath her skin. The entire tree lit from within, veins of light running upward into the canopy. A voice like wind over stone rolled through her mind. Pride, greed, fear. Flames hidden in the palace shadows. Hannah snatched her hand back. On her palm glimmered the outline of a tiny lantern, flickering though no flame burned within. She stared. Magic was rare and dangerous, yet here it was, marking her as if she'd been chosen. The flames must be stilled, the voice finished. Lantern and flames. Was this a warning, a duty? Before she could ask, the glow dimmed. Only the hush of the forest remained. She returned to the palace at dawn, her cloak stained with dew. She tried to sign and gesture, to scribble words on parchment, but no one believed her. To the courtiers, her wild eyes and ink sketches of glowing trees were just another oddity of the silent princess. Teresa tried to soothe her. "Oh Hannah, is this about the soup again? I told them no mushrooms." "You're right, it's a disaster. It was the worst timing. Ministers were bickering over a new treaty, and the queen had gone to inspect distant provinces. Hannah, without a voice, had no way to cut through the noise. Defeated, she fled back to the forest. The rootkeeper awaited, swaying despite the still air. It dropped 3 leaves at her feet. One red as molten iron, one blue as glacier ice, one yellow as sunlight at harvest. When she picked them up, each pulsed in her palm like a heartbeat. Flames that hide must be seen. Scenes that cling must be freed. Only a reflection of the false shall burn the leaf. Pride, greed, fear. Hannah understood. The sickness she had heard in the forest was not from the trees. It seeped outward from the palace, poisoning root and river alike. If she could reveal each hidden sin, the kingdom might heal. If she failed, the roots and everything connected to them would wither. She tucked the leaves into a pouch, the phantom lantern glowing faintly on her skin, and turned back toward the castle with a new steadiness in her step. She might not speak, but she could act. The next morning dawned slate gray. Clouds stretched like old wool across the sky. Hannah slipped into the royal council chamber, her hood low. Ministers argued in circles, voices rising and falling like sparrows fighting over crumbs. She let the noise wash over her, watching the faint lantern outline on her palm. It was dull now, waiting. The leaves in her pouch trembled faintly. She drew the red one and held it inside her sleeve. Pride hides in the heart of power, the rootkeeper's voice had said. But where? Everyone in the chamber sounded self-important. Sir Lancelot, commander of the kingdom's armies, slammed a gauntlet on the table. "We strike first," he barked. "We will show them our strength. Let this eastern delegation learn what happens to those who hesitate before our banners." A foreign envoy, pale from travel, tried to protest. "We came with peace offerings," Hannah's palm seared. The lantern flared. The red leaf shone like a coal about to catch. She stepped closer. Ministers stared at her but she ignored them, holding the leaf up between Sir Lancelot and his reflection in the polished table. The leaf brightened until the room filled with a crimson glow. Sir Lancelot's eyes widened. His lips moved of their own accord. "Peace is for the weak," he spat. "I crave victory to prove myself supreme. Every battle I've urged has been to feed my name, not the kingdom's safety." Gasps rippled around the table. The queen's advisors turned to one another. "Supremacy, you risked our people for vanity." One hissed, I don't know why I said that." Lancelot stammered, sweat breaking on his brow. But the truth hung in the air like smoke. The council voted before he could recover. His war plans dissolved in a storm of hands raised against him. Hannah exhaled softly. The lantern on her palm dimmed, one of its flickering lights settling into calm. The red leaf burned to ash in her fingers and drifted away. "Pride will no longer steer our armies," she thought. Outside the windows, the first shafts of sun cut through the clouds. But her relief was brief. As the ministers dispersed, Hannah caught a new scent. Something rich and spiced. Utterly out of place in a time of shortages. Her palm tingled again. Hannah followed the aroma through a side corridor seldom used, down a spiral stair into the forgotten amphitheater beneath the palace. Dust coated the seats, yet the air carried the warmth of ovens. She pushed open a heavy door. A feast lay spread across long tables. Roasted meats glistening with fat baskets of sugared fruits, wines older than some of the council members. Nobles lounged with napkins tucked under their chins. Royal chefs ferried platters back and forth, laughing, their aprons gleaming. This was no sanctioned banquet. Beyond the walls, common folk queued for crumbs. Hannah's fists clenched. She pulled the blue leaf from her pouch. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Another tray, a chef barked. "Hurry, before anyone notices." No need to worry about that, Hannah thought. She pressed the leaf to the floor. A low tone boomed, like a distant gong, though no one had struck it. The amphitheater trembled. Dust drifted from the ceiling. "Who rang that?" a noble demanded. Light ripped across the walls. The entire room dissolved from its hidden cellar and reappeared in the middle of the marketplace above. Sunlight blinded the feasting nobles. Around them stood townspeople, gaunt and furious. "What is this?" a noble spluttered, clutching a dripping drumstick. "Sorcery. I'll take sorcery over thieves in silks." Someone in the crowd shouted. Others jeered. The nobles' plates clattered to the cobbles. Panic spread among the chefs. The blue leaf flared then disintegrated in Hannah's palm. Her lantern steadied further, its glow now soft but steady. Greed has been dragged into the open, she thought. 2 flames stilled, 1 yet remains. As the crowd surged, guards poured in. trying to separate furious citizens from the humiliated elite. And at the center of it all stood the queen herself, cloak billowing as she returned unexpectedly from her inspection tour. "Mother," Teresa cried, running forward from the palace steps. "You don't know what's happened while you were gone. Look." The queen took in the scene with narrowed eyes. Sir Lancelot stripped of command. Nobles exposed. The silent princess standing amid the uproar with a strange glow on her palm. "What is this chaos?" she demanded. Hannah knelt, pressing her hand to the earth. The yellow leaf burned faintly, but not yet bright. "Fear hides where truth suffocates," the rootkeeper had warned. "Where exactly?" She raised her eyes to the royal council, gathering behind the queen. Many looked stricken, others defiant. One advisor stepped forward, trembling. "Your Majesty, we have failed you. We told you only what you wished to hear. We feared your anger. Sir Lancelot prospered by flattering you while dissenters were punished. We became cowards." The queen stiffened. "What are you saying?" Hannah stepped closer, holding the yellow leaf high. It flared like sunlight through stained glass. The advisor's confession spilled into the air. "Your temper silenced us. We let rot fester beneath your crown rather than risk losing our posts. We are as guilty as those we condemned." Another minister fell to his knees. "Forgive me, my queen. I dismissed famine reports to avoid displeasing you. Children starved because I feared you more than I feared my conscience." The queen's face went pale. "Enough," she whispered. "No more lies." She turned slowly to Hannah. "You showed them. You forced the truth." Teresa reached out, clasping her sister's hands. "Listen, Mother. Hannah has been warning us for days. She can hear what we ignore. We all silenced her because she cannot speak." The yellow leaf blazed, then vanished into sparks. The lantern on Hannah's palm glowed whole and steady, no flicker left. Pride, greed, fear, all revealed. The rootkeeper's voice rolled across the square like a rising wind. "Speak the truth. Protect the root. What is silenced must still be heard." For a heartbeat, everyone heard it. Not with their ears but in their bones. Even the queen. She lowered her crown and sank to one knee before Hannah. "Daughter," she said softly, "your silence has guided us more than my commands. Lead us." But Hannah shook her head. She pointed to Teresa, the sister whose words could fill any hall. Teresa stared, eyes wet. "You want me to rule?" Hannah pressed her palm to Teresa's heart. The lantern's glow spilled into her sister like liquid gold. Teresa heard it. Not a sound but a certainty. "Lead with her voice in your heart." She nodded. "I will." Together, silence and speech will heal this kingdom. The crowd knelt as one. Even the wind seemed to hush. Epilogue, harmony of voice and quiet. The rootkeeper's light faded back into the forest, but its roots now pulsed with renewed life. Crops flourished. River water ran clear. In council, ministers spoke honestly, knowing that fear could no longer hide them. Nobles returned their stolen wealth to the people. Soldiers laid down weapons forged for vanity and rebuilt villages instead. Princess Teresa ruled with eloquence, but never without her sister beside her. Hannah, though still voiceless, became the kingdom's conscience, a listener, a keeper of truths. When disputes rose too high, Teresa would pause and glance at her sister, who would place a hand on the table or shake her head, a silent signal stronger than any decree. It wasn't words alone that saved the realm, nor silence alone that ruled it. It was the harmony between them. The way a river needs both banks to flow. Through one princess's voice and another's quiet courage, a kingdom learned to listen again. And sometimes, when Teresa addressed her people from the balcony, she would fall silent for a heartbeat. In that pause, all would feel the presence of the silent princess, the girl who could hear what no one else could, who turned 3 leaves into a lantern and a kingdom's sins into light. In that hush, Hannah finally felt heard.